What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. Once again, another still worth it video. This time we're going to be talking about an Android device. Finally, I'm talking about some more Androids. The last one I did I think was the Galaxy S8, and I have like a billion more of these to do, so I have to hurry up and get them out of the way. Now the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge surprisingly was one of the most watched still worth it videos of 2019 that I dropped, and I thought that was pretty interesting. You know, the Galaxy S7 Edge kind of in a way is a random phone, but it really isn't at the same time. The S7 Edge, as you guys know, was a successor to the S6 and the S6 Edge, and I think the S6 Edge was an interesting device. I think it brought kind of an interesting update to the whole entire Galaxy series, at least the Galaxy S series. But with the Galaxy S7 Edge, it really did take it to that next level that it really needed to be. And even looking at it now, there's still a lot of strong characteristics of the S7 Edge that a lot of phones even in the market now are kind of missing out on, which is really weird. Now, even looking at the front, we have a Super AMOLED display. Now, let me just tell you right now, this display is really good for how old this phone is. Okay, this phone came out in 2016 in February, so it's going to be turning 4 years old literally next month. And for this panel to be as good as it is, it's really surprising. I think it's up there with my like 11 Pro Max or something like that. Like, it's a really good panel. It's a 5.5 inch Super AMOLED panel. Like I stated, it's 1440p with 534 pixels per inch. Now, the phone panel itself is very good, but the bad thing is that a lot of Samsung Galaxy S devices, especially in the used market, do experience quite a bit of burn-in, which is really sad. My Galaxy S9, S9 Plus, S8, S8 Plus, and the S7 Edge and the S7, all my Galaxy S series devices that I buy used almost always have a bunch of burn-in on it, which is kind of a sad thing. If you look at like iPhones, for example, like the iPhone 10 and iPhone, really that's the first OLED iPhone, there's very little burn-in on that, which is kind of weird because why does that phone have very little burn-in but the Galaxy series has so much burn-in on the displays? I don't get it, but that is one thing to keep in mind. The panel itself is very, very good, but the longevity of it, the burn-in, I mean, I think these panels are just so susceptible to burn-in, which is not a good thing at all. On the bottom, you can see we have a micro USB port. We do have a headphone jack on the phone as well, which is really cool. I love seeing that. Now, this was the last Galaxy S series device to have a micro USB port. They eventually switched over to USB Type-C with the Galaxy S8, which is a really good thing. I'm really happy they did that. This phone unfortunately does not have that capability, which is kind of sad, but and even thinking long term, USB Type-C is the future, and this phone does not have that specific port, but I think it's okay. I think, you know, this phone still has the micro SD card slot, so if you want to expand, if you want to add things, whatever, you can still do it through the micro SD card slot, just in terms of increasing storage and dragging files and everything. But USB Type-C is so universal and there's so many things to do with it that I kind of wish they put into this phone, but it's whatever. On the back, a glass back with a single camera setup, and really the back is pretty minimal. You don't have anything going on it. Obviously the front, you add the home button and the fingerprint sensor. You do have IP68 dust and water resistance on this phone, which is a really cool thing, and even thinking long term, having that type of ruggedness is an awesome feature for this phone. And in terms of the outside, that is really pretty much it. There's nothing too crazy going on. You have pretty much, you know, the bare basics of a phone you need. This phone, in my opinion though, still feels like a very premium phone. I said the same exact thing with the Samsung Galaxy S7. I would even go as far as saying the same thing to the Galaxy S6. They're both, and they're all very good feeling phones, very premium feeling phones, the Galaxy S7 Edge included. Is it the best looking phone though? That's the issue. It might feel the best, you know, the screen might be great and everything, but when you have that much bezel around the display, that really does take away from the overall look of the phone, and I think that's what dates this phone the most. The features, the everything, the micro SD card slot, fingerprint sensor, all that stuff is nice, but that bezel on this display is something that you'll kind of have to ask yourself, you know, is that something you want? Looking into the future, phones are only getting slimmer and slimmer in terms of bezels, and this one has quite a bit of bezel on it, so that kind of covers it up on the outside. Now, hitting on the software, this phone took the exact same approach as the S7 did in terms of software. They're both exactly the same phone pretty much except the design. And this phone started off with Android 6.0 Marshmallow. We are able to upgrade it to Android 8.0 Oreo. The bad thing is that it did end on TouchWiz. If it just got one more version of Android, it would have gotten One UI, which would have been a godsend. I don't know why Samsung did that. They're always, you know, cutting the lifespan at the same time. They could go expand it if they want to, but they don't want to for some reason. They did the same exact thing with the Galaxy S8. But with the S7 Edge, software wise, you're stuck on where it's at. I don't even think it's getting security updates anymore. I think it got its last one not too long ago. So in terms of software, you're pretty much outdated. It didn't get Android 10 or anything like that either. But what I will tell you is that you can go always root this thing, you can custom ROM it, and that is something I would highly recommend people to do. There's even no point in even getting this phone if you're not going to do that, because this phone is so outdated in software. If you currently own it, then that's one thing, but if you're going to actively go out and look for this phone, there's such a huge abundance of custom ROMs and, you know, custom all these different things, and there's a Lineage OS ROMs, there's so many different things that if you don't actually go and custom ROM this thing, I will cry myself to sleep. There's two different versions of the Galaxy S7 Edge. There's the Qualcomm and Exynos. Both of those have two different roots, so you have to figure out which model you have and then root it and flash those custom ROMs that are suitable for your specific phone. But that is something I would always highly recommend people to do once their phone is done getting software updates natively. So that is something I always advise people to do. Obviously be careful, don't be flashing random things on your phone, but do your research and you'll be set. So in terms of software, completely outdated, but you can always go and custom ROM this thing. It still has a little bit of a development community behind it. So that kind of covers it up in terms of software. Now hitting on the performance, like I said, two different models, the Exynos 8890 Octa one and then the Qualcomm Snapdragon 820 chipset. I have the one with the Snapdragon on it. It has a quad-core CPU and Adreno 530 GPU. Now there were three different models of the S7 Edge, a 32, 64, and 128 gig model. All of those have 4 gigabytes of RAM, so it doesn't really matter the storage variant because it still has a micro SD card slot. And in terms of the performance, I think it's a very overall glitchy kind of experience that I've been having with my S7 Edge. I don't think it's like a bad experience per se, but it is more so glitchy than not. I mean, it's even the same thing with the S7. When I was playing games on it with my S7 Edge and I'm doing things, I think it's kind of a weird experience because this phone, when you're feeling it, it feels more faster and it feels more premium than what's that kind of alluding to be. So when I load things up, when I do things, once the app is loaded, it's really not that bad. The screen on the Edge is kind of sensitive, so you're always kind of randomly tapping things, which is not a good thing. I think with the S10 they kind of fixed it, but with that one it's still super sensitive as well. But when you're going through apps and opening things and going to the Play Store and downloading apps or whatever, it's just kind of like an inconsistent performance in my opinion. It'll be like fast sometimes, it'll be slow sometimes, it'll be glitchy and stuttery. So maybe the speed is the same, but the animations are super choppy. And I don't allude that mostly to the phone itself. I allude that mostly to TouchWiz and all those background processes that specific software and UI took. That's a really huge dent in the terms of the overall performance and overall consistency of the S7 Edge, which is a really bad thing. You know, it's already an old phone kind of, and they ended it with such a weird software. If you flash a Lineage OS ROM or some stock Android ROM on it, I'm sure it'll be much of a better experience. But that is something, as you can see from my performance alone, it's kind of a weird thing. So in terms of performance, it's pretty choppy. The speed itself might be okay. If you can see, like in terms of even those like games that I've been playing, it's kind of choppy sometimes too. But I think it'll get you from point A to point B. I guess it's not a horrible experience, but it wouldn't be my first choice, that's for sure. Now moving on to the camera, this thing actually has a pretty decent camera on it even now in 2020. It has a single 12 megapixel camera and a 5 megapixel wide angle lens on the front, and the quality of the photos are pretty good. Still, you can do 4K at up to 30 frames, 1080p at up to 60 frames. I wish you could do 1080 at 120, but it doesn't matter, whatever. I think the overall camera quality is pretty decent, but like I've stated in all these other camera videos and even just all these other slides that I've been doing, it's just the biggest downside and the biggest problem of getting an older phone, especially with like an S7 Edge or iPhone 6s or something, in terms of the camera, is not necessarily the quality or the video resolutions or the whatever. It's almost always the hardware itself. The cameras that we have nowadays have multiple camera lenses. We have telephoto lenses, ultra wide sensors, all that stuff, where this phone only has a single wide angle lens, which might be good enough for a lot of people, but that would really be the only downgrade and only thing you'll pretty much notice when you're getting an older phone like this, is that it doesn't have those multiple camera sensors that, you know, the newest iPhone or the newest Android has. So that'll definitely make you feel like you have an older phone, but I think the quality of the photos themselves are pretty good. And sometimes, like I say all the time, it doesn't matter what the photo's being taken on. It doesn't matter if you're taking it on an iPhone or Android. It just mostly matters what the photo is. You know, if it's a photo of your family, I don't really think you care if you had like the telephoto lens to zoom in a little bit more. You just walk in a little bit more. So that will pretty much cover that in terms of the camera. Now ending it off with the battery life, this thing has a 3600 milliamp hour battery, and that battery size is actually pretty good, but my phone's battery has degraded so much. My standby time is really bad. Even when I'm using it, it goes down like 5% within like 15 seconds. So it's not the best battery life. I did get my phone used, so that probably has a lot of things to do with it. But that should also be kind of like a warning to you guys. If you're planning on getting an Android phone used or even a Galaxy S7 Edge, I would probably advise you to tell the seller to like, oh, can you download a battery health app? Let me see how much health the battery is. Most of the times on iPhones, most of the used iOS devices that ended on iOS 12, you're able to see the battery health, so that's a good thing. But on most Android devices, that feature does not come stock. So it's good to see the battery health. My battery health was on like 70 something percent on my S7 Edge, so it went down a lot. And with these older phones, you kind of have to keep that in mind when you're looking at them. So it's not at that full 3600. Batteries degrade over time, and it's not just exclusive to Androids, it's with all phones and all technology in general that has a battery. So that is something to keep in mind. It's not a deal breaker, but you will have to probably be around a charger for most of the time. It does have wireless charging, which is a really good thing, and you're kind of future-proofing yourself there. But I mean, to kind of sum up this whole entire video and to answer the question, is the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge still worth it in 2020? What I will tell you is that I think the S7 Edge, if you currently own it, then I think you could probably get out like a couple more months out of it on stock. If you flash a custom ROM on it though, I think it's kind of worth it. I think it has a little bit of life left in it. It has a couple more features here and there that you can still use. So if you're willing to custom ROM it, then yes. If you're keeping it stock and you don't want to root it or custom ROM it, then I would say at least go for a Galaxy S8. That is probably the lowest I would go on the totem pole, either an S8 or an S8 Plus. That phone has a little bit more life left in it. It has some security updates coming through once One UI is completely done. So that's probably where I would recommend you to go, is to get a Galaxy S8 or a Galaxy S8 Plus. Honestly, getting a Galaxy S7 Edge doesn't really make much sense for me right now, unless you're going to custom ROM it or you own it currently. So if you want to pick up a Samsung Galaxy S8 or an S8 Plus for the cheapest price, eBay is probably the best way to go. But I'll find the cheapest ones on Amazon and link them straight down in the description below so you guys can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. But that is pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section as well. Hit that like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys can hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my main channel, all those things are linked down below. I'd really appreciate it if you guys could check it out. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.